So I worked in Kenya for about 5 years since graduation before actually moving over. I started this process in 2018, did my exam in 2019, went all the way to India, Mumbai, did the exam, and then flew back home, did my IELTS, and then, everything went as we're going to be discussing. So whatever challenges guys are facing, nothing is new. That's what I can say. That's my brief introduction.
So Josh, you're saying you worked for 5 years. How is the work? How is the work experience in Kenya, especially for nurses? Because I know that is where you have a lot of expertise. Because I know there are challenges. Yeah, just proceed.
Yeah. So once I cleared my BSN from Baraton University in 2016, I was already in an internship in Thika Level 5 at that time. So after the internship, of course, when you're in internship, that's when you get welcomed with experience in nursing. When you are a student and you're going through those rotations, you are working under those nurses' licenses, and you show up at the school's convenience. You show up at maybe 8 a.m. and then by 4 p.m. you've left. But when you actually start internship, then you start realizing that you are now responsible to those patients slow by slow. And as many nurses know, at some point, even those qualified nurses, they actually depend on you. So you get to be the first to show up, and then the last to even leave.
To leave, sure.
And you can. I was in Thika Level 5, a public hospital, acutely short-staffed. So you get to do everything from the way they consider BSN nurses, like you can do everything. They're asking those questions, and so from everything you run the show. Let me say, even though you are an intern, okay. So and then quickly after the internship, I went to Nairobi Women's in Rongai. I worked as a med-surg nurse for about 2 months, and then went to Kenyatta National Hospital. That was where I landed as an emergency room nurse for the following 5 years.
So, how do you compare working in the US and what you used to do while working in the 254?
Good question. I can tell you it's a huge difference. It's like day and night, man. In Kenya, let's use the example of where I used to work as an emergency room nurse. Let's start with documentation. That is a very vital aspect in nursing. And back home we are using pen and paper. I'm told nowadays in many hospitals they are using electronic medical records. At that time they tried it in Kenyatta a few times, but it failed terribly. So for most part, we were using pen and paper, files, poor handwriting of doctors, not knowing direction. Some papers have fallen off the file. You don't even know where the direction, where the care is going to. So when you come here, you realize you must know how to type on the computer, because all chatting, 99% of chatting is on the computer. Okay. So maybe at this point I can mention that guys should learn to type fast, because you don't want to be leaving an hour after people have left
after your shift.
You're there just because you're documenting, because you can't find E on the laptop or on the computer, because you can't type fast. Well, it's not all typing. It's more of checking boxes. The tiny boxes you just check. That's for most part. That's what it is. Just not to scare anybody. And so the documentation aspect was took me by surprise. It was so much a difference from what I was used to, because when you show up and then you don't know anything going on until you actually click into the computer to sign up for your patient and see everything there. So that is one of the things that I can say was a huge difference. Documentation, and you see, with this documentation, it comes with accountability, because once you've documented on a patient, that is permanent record. Once
you cannot erase.
You cannot. You can edit it, but it will be seen that you did this.
You edited.
It was edited. Okay. And once you've signed up for that patient, that is your patient. You're responsible. We used to have cases where it was more of team nursing back home. You're assigned. You show up at work, 2 nurses, and you have 30 patients.
Yes.
So you are told, you do this part, I'll do this part. And then if you get to have a laziness, quote unquote, because they're there, they tend to leave the work for you. You give all the meds, you do all the documentation, and then they'll just be showing up at the end of the shift. Here, there's nothing like that.
Yes.
You must be accountable from zero to the end. If anything happens to that patient, and you cannot run away from it, because there are timestamps. Remember, anytime you're chatting, there's a time.
There's a timestamp.
So if you have a patient who's coming in with a chest pain, we have policy that in the first 10 minutes they need to have done an EKG and submitted to the doctor. So the time you document that EKG, it's time stamped. So if it is 15 minutes after, they can always follow up to see why, and that's how they gauge their performance. That's how they're able to evaluate how nurses work. So because of the efficiency in documentation, people are responsible, people are accountable, and you can even evaluate yourself to know, this is the time I was supposed to do this. I could not. Tomorrow I'll do better. If that makes sense.
Okay. So Josh, I want us to go back a little bit. I know you used an agency to immigrate to the USA and go and work there.
Correct.
I want you to explain to us how the journey is, because it's a whole journey. I understand there's a lot of things, and I've seen you discussing those things on your TikTok channel. Your TikTok channel goes by the name Josh Mogash. For those
Correct.
who might want to go and see what you usually do there, I've seen you discussing what you went through. Can you try at least to explain to us how your journey was, and add any information which you feel is relevant for anyone who wants to know about that journey?
Cool. Yeah, that's hopefully I'll be able to summarize, because it's a long story. So I used an agency called Avant, and back in 2018, it was not as famous. To me, I hadn't even heard of any other agency besides it. And it happened to be that where I was working in Kenyatta, everybody was using it. And so that's all I knew. And actually, I didn't even know it's an agency. I just thought, we have this perception of an agencies that have actually frauded people. Like, they can't be trusted. So people are asking, can I trust this agency? You can have an agency leading you on until to a point they just stop communicating. They just don't respond no more. And even in some incidences, I've had people saying that they have even paid some agents to help them move abroad. So there is this, sense of not trusting these agencies. So at that point, I didn't even know it's an agency. I just thought, I used to think I called it like a company. I never used the word agency. And I didn't know there were so many of them. And I got introduced to it by a friend. And back in the day, when people used to do these things, they were so silent about it until somebody passes NCLEX. Then you're surprised, this person has already passed NCLEX. They are preparing to go abroad. So I found this friend of mine doing it, like secretively. Like watering it down. There's a way you can share information, but not as serious. Just say, there's this thing I'm trying, I don't know how it will go, and I'm like, I'm kind of curious. What do you mean? Where will it go? What is your plan? Well, there's a nurse who left recently, and they use this agency, so I'm trying to. And I told him, you know what? I mean, let me try too. I mean, there's nothing to lose. Are they asking money? He said no. Everything covered. Yeah, for most part. I was like, okay, just send me that link. Let me do it. So he sent me the link. I woke up early in the morning. I remember the following morning about 5 a.m. Went into it. So I don't know if things have changed. This is like 4 years back or 2018. So once you get that link and you go in, you get to do like a kind of an English test.
Yes.
And then